The night Lily came home with a bruise at the base of her neck. Everything that used to feel steady, the porch light, the coffee ritual, the quiet hum of our neighborhood, suddenly sounded fragile, like a plate sliding toward the edge of a counter, and I knew we were about to find out whether small things could break a life apart or whether small things, done right, could hold it together again. People always ask for the short version. What happened? Who was blamed? Who ended up in court? But the short version skips the slow, grinding parts, the little humiliations, the whisper campaigns, the inspections at dawn, the pieces that actually turn a neighbor dispute into a war. If you want the short version, it's this. My wife was assaulted at work, the neighborhood's power structure turned on her, and we had to be smarter than the people who thought they could bully us. But the long version, the one that actually shows how truth can win when you're methodical and human, that's what I'm telling you now, like I told my friends, like I still tell myself when nights get quiet and the porch light flickers. We'd moved to Cedar Ridge Estates because it felt sensible. Lily teaches chemistry at a public high school 3 towns over. She gardens like she's coaxing memories out of the soil, and I fix things: plumbing, old radios, fences. We like seasons and small indulgences, not drama. Cedar Ridge had the manicured lawns and the HOA stickers, and Gloria Finch ran the association like it was a country club board, but darker. She was the kind of person who calls a rule an ethic and makes it sound noble. She'd been president for 10 years, chaired the Community Standards Committee, and had a way of turning casual complaints into crusades. I'll come back to Gloria in a minute. She matters more than you think. The assault happened on a Tuesday. Lily called me from a payphone outside the school they had won by the gym, and her voice wasn't the calm, clipped tone she uses when she's dealing with a lab that exploded. It was thinner, closer to the sound of someone holding their breath. He grabbed my arm. She said, "I got away. I'm fine." That was the first lie. She wasn't fine, not really. When she walked in that night, she took off her coat, and there it was, a crescent bruise, faint but real, like a pressed memory. She put it in a place only I would notice and smiled, 1,000 apologies wrapped in her teeth. "I'm okay," she said again, but I could see the fight come alive under her jaw, the same fight she had when she was a kid learning how to weld, quiet, precise, absolutely real. The kid who did it was Tyler Reeves, polite in public, practiced in charm, the kind of golden boy variability that melts the edges off consequences. His father coached the football team. His mother ran the PTA fundraising bake sale every year. Tyler had a grave dispute with Lily over a lab report. In the heat of it, he grabbed her arm. Simple as that, messy as that. School took a week to make a formal move. Tyler played the victim. The school board deferred to process. And Tyler's mother called Gloria, who didn't like Lily. Call it jealousy. Call it standing for community standards. Call it the way some people see their name as an estate and everyone else's tenants. Gloria called, and the calm, efficient voice on the other end of the line was the hook that turned smallness into an avalanche. What followed wasn't dramatic in a single spectacular way. It was a series of small, surgical things meant to make us think twice about living here. A notice posted on our door about landscaping noncompliance. An anonymous email questioning whether Lily's front porch light was aesthetic appropriate. A neighbor who'd always nodded hello now measured the height of our hedges and reported them. Gloria began to use the machinery at her disposal: the HOA newsletters, the committee votes, the threat of fines as a way to punish rather than protect. The message was crystal: step out of line, and we will make you small. It's important to understand why she did it. Power works in 1,000 quiet ways. In Gloria's head, controlling the neighborhood was the same as keeping it clean. She had invested social capital in Cedar Ridge 5 fundraisers, a plaque at the community center, a column in the local paper, and anyone who threatened that image got noticed. Lily's assault had made Gloria uncomfortable because it risked the neighborhood's story, a tidy place where nothing messy happens. So rather than support Lily, the woman who had been publicly assaulted, Gloria used the tools of civility to punish us, masking spite as enforcement. Lily doesn't chase fights. She walks into them like a surgeon, steady hands, deliberate movements. Where most people would flip out, she archived. She photographed the bruise. She saved the text messages. She wrote a report to the school that read like a lab notebook: time, date, witness names, the exact path of where she was in the prep room. When school moved slowly, she moved faster with a more reliable machine: evidence. That's the first thing I want people to hear in a world of gossip and spin. Documentation is oxygen. We started a folder, sealed things in envelopes, and sent certified letters whenever a weird HOA notice arrived. It was boring, it was administrative, but it was precise, and it mattered. The harassment grew into a campaign. First, it was little things that made you feel watched: a car that idled across from our house at odd hours, a young woman standing too long near the mailbox as if she had a reason to measure the neighborhood's traffic, a note slid under our door about improper use of community space. Then Gloria called a neighborhood inspection. Everyone had to show proof their gutters were painted the right color, their mailboxes met code, and their hedges conformed to a 48-inch standard that no one had enforced until we raised a complaint. The inspection was the point where community policing turned personal. The measuring tape became a cudgel, used to humiliate rather than maintain. We tried the normal channels. We called the county, who basically said HOAs are mostly private associations and their powers are substantial. They don't like stepping in unless someone breaks state law. We emailed the HOA board, and they sent sterile replies about fairness and due process. We hired a local attorney, Rachel Moreno, who specializes in municipal nuisances and civil disputes. Rachel told us 2 things that changed what we did next. First, never assume the system works for you. Second, If someone is weaponizing bureaucracy, weaponize bureaucracy back with better paperwork. So we did. We started by mapping the rules, covenants, conditions, and restrictions. The CC and RS are dense, legalese-heavy documents written to protect properties, but sometimes twisted to protect egos. Gloria's CC and RS barred porch furniture that looked non-conforming and required landscaping maintenance. But Annie across the street, the woman with the bronze horse statue, had a fence that poked into an easement. Gloria had fined dozens of people for less. We found inconsistencies, and where there were inconsistencies, there were leverage points. At the same time, we collected proof. Lily rigged an extra camera inside her classroom, not to ambush anyone, but to have a record. I upgraded our porch camera to a model that time-stamped everything and stored it off-site. Rachel advised keeping a strict chain of custody on any evidence. Who had it, when it was recorded, where it was stored. Boring, again, but necessary. We learned to be better accountants of truth. And when we found something, we didn't yell into the void. We certified it, mailed it, and shoved it into the record like a wedge. Then something small snapped into place. We had a night where the porch camera caught a dark sedan idling near the mailbox, and someone, a gloved hand, tried the community gate latch. The camera caught it. Small hands, younger wrist, but the silhouette matched Tyler in the way kids have a walk that never really changes from high school into 3 decades later. We took the footage to the school, to the detective assigned to Lily's report, and to Rachel. Suddenly, the things caught on silent surveillance, the latch, the car, the gloved hand, were no longer abstract suspicions. They were evidence, and evidence can sing in court. You need to understand the rhythm of how evidence changes social energy. Gossip is loud and transient. A video with a timestamp is heavy. It shifts where people stand in the conversation. That night we felt a small victory. It didn't change Gloria, she doubled down, of course, but it made her moves readable. She began to overreach. When people overreach, they leave themselves open. Gloria escalated publicly by orchestrating a safety awareness HOA meeting. On paper, the meeting was about neighborhood safety and new parking rules. In practice, it was a stage, and Gloria had the microphone. She picked a soft evening and filled the community center with pictures of preserving property values and keeping kids safe. She distributed a packet that included a 3-page timeline of Lily's incident at school, paired with an implication that Lily's behavior had made her a liability. She framed it as concern in public. She was velvet. In private, cruel. The night of the meeting, we sat near the back. I can still feel the hollow in my stomach when Gloria took the stage, a woman in a navy blazer who looked like someone's idea of authority. She spoke like she'd practiced being alarmed. Our community must be safe, she said, and the room nodded because that's what neighbors do. They nod when someone offers a script that sounds like common sense. Then she shifted to Lily, using carefully chosen words. People who don't live in the thick of power rarely notice the small weaponized things, the repeated use of liability, the insistence on maintaining standards, as if a person could be a standard. It was the moment we planned for. Rachel had prepared a different script, evidence. I cued the projector and fed the meeting a series of clips: the latch, the car, the timestamp. Lily stood, quiet and steady, and we played the footage. The room went from murmurs to a hard silence. Faces that had been nodding changed, some into confusion, others into a sort of embarrassed anger. Gloria's smile tightened like a wire. That public flip was everything. It didn't fix our problem overnight, but it forced people to decide. Some left the meeting and avoided us. Small communities do that reflexively to keep their equilibrium. Others, including neighbors who had been on the fence, came up to Lily and said things like, "I didn't know," or "I'm sorry." That's important. Once you show people reality with files and timestamps, most prefer to align to the truth, or at least to avoid being on the wrong side of it. But Gloria didn't fold. If anything, she grew more dangerous. Petty inspections turned into something worse. A night where the mailbox, the small community mailbox by the road, had been smashed and a shot had torn through the wooden post. It was obviously meant to intimidate. The police called it vandalism and reckless discharge. We called it a message. The shot was a bright, cruel punctuation mark on the campaign. Someone, somewhere, wanted us to be scared. We called 911 when the shot happened. We had the porch camera running, and it caught a sedan that sped off. The footage was blurry, but enough to tell the detective that there had been a second vehicle involved in earlier acts, the same make as the car that had idled near our house. Detective Daniels, who ran a patient, old-fashioned line of investigation, showed up with a notebook and a compassion under his professional face that we'd learned to rely on. He didn't promise miracles, but he listened, and in the world between bureaucracy and mercy, listening matters. Then things tightened into a night I still replay in my head. 2 men in a black sedan returned late, and they weren't interested in being subtle. Their headlights cast long white knives across our yard. I called the police. I remember my hands slightly trembling as I dialed, the phone pressing into my palm. I remember Lily standing beside me with a calm that felt not like fearlessness, but like someone who's learned how to survive. The men approached the mailbox, and then one of them, a bigger man, dropped something metallic and smashed it against the post. The porch camera caught them. Then the motion sensor lights turned the night into a theater. They heard the click of a door. They didn't expect Lily to be armed. Most people don't. She had a legal permit, nothing about vigilante justice, only a license to protect. She said later that she fired not to kill, but to disable a controlled shot that struck the back tire of the sedan as it tried to flee. The car lurched. It stalled. One of the men jumped out and started toward the house. The other scrambled to control the vehicle. Someone in the neighborhood, maybe a neighbor who'd had enough, called the police at the same time I did. The men drove off, damaged and angry. We learned later that the car belonged to a contractor who had worked with the HOA on landscaping projects. Coincidence? Or a deeper connection? That's the thing with webs of influence. Sometimes you can see the threads, sometimes they're a tangle. Detective Daniels, with the camera footage and the witnesses, started to tie things together. Tyler's shadow kept showing up on the margins of multiple events. The latch attempt, the mysterious surveillance near the school, the sedan that lingered. He had friends with access to vehicles and motives dressed up as loyalty. The more we looked, the more the pattern hardened. When the dust settled, legally speaking, arrests were made. Tyler was charged for the assault at school after the district reviewed video evidence and the time-stamped logs Lily had kept. The contractor's men were tied to vandalism and intimidation after cross-referenced receipts, and the camera footage matched. Gloria, the HOA president, was subpoenaed after testimony revealed she had contacted school officials and orchestrated campaigns against Lily that crossed into harassment. In court, you get to see people stripped of their performance. Gloria's practiced calm cracked when the lawyer for the prosecution, Rachel, had introduced a lot of the evidence, quietly, from the side, asked for the chain of communications, for the emails, for the meeting minutes. The record was unsparing. You want me to tell you that justice was clean and final and neat? It wasn't. The legal system is a messy machine with lots of human parts. Tyler received consequences, but he also had a future shaped by choices and accountability. The contractor's men admitted their roles in exchange for reduced sentences. Gloria faced civil penalties and the forced resignation by a coalition of homeowners who had finally seen what their deference had cost them. The HOA was restructured. Committees that had been opaque became more transparent. Not everything returned to the way it had been, that's the other truth, and some neighbors never forgave us for making the fight public. But other neighbors leaned in and learned something about the cost of silence. I want to be honest about what it did to me. It made me tired in a deep way, the kind of exhaustion that sits in your bones after you've pushed a boulder up a hill only to find another one waiting. It made me watchful in my smallest moments. It made me have to relearn trust. But it also changed something in me that I like. The knowledge that a careful life, one built on paperwork, on good counsel, and on friends who show up, can withstand targeted cruelty. Lily, too, changed. She became more public about her experience. She testified to help other teachers, to change protocols at the school, to make sure evidence is handled more quickly. She keeps gardening. She's kinder to herself in small ways. Strength isn't just the immediate reaction. Sometimes it's the slow reconstitution afterwards, the way you let light in. What I want people to take from this, speaking plainly, is this. Bullies often use rules to terrify you because rules look righteous. They use committees and committees' minutes like curtains to hide the hand that pulls strings. But rules are written words, and those words can be read and sometimes reread against the very people who weaponize them. If you document, if you keep time-stamped files, if you talk to the right professionals and hold people to public records, you can turn that weapon back. That isn't romantic. It's administrative. And it works. There's a last scene I keep playing in my head because it was a small, cinematic justice that felt right. It was an HOA meeting a few months after things had settled. The community center smelled faintly of coffee and disinfectant. Gloria sat at the front, and this time she did not have the room's trust. She read from a prepared statement about the need to repair divisions. She looked tired in a way that had nothing to do with age, tired in a way power dries people out. Someone in the back, an elderly woman who used to bring Lily cookies and now was on the board of the new oversight committee, asked a simple question. How do you plan to make sure our rules don't hurt people? Gloria's answer was the most human thing I'd ever heard from her. It was a clumsy, defensive apology that tried to be both small and big. People interpreted it however they wanted. Some dismissed it as PR. Some accepted it. I sat there and felt the room breathe in a different rhythm, a softer one. This story doesn't end with everybody holding hands. It ends with a choice left open, which is the point. People can choose to use power to protect, or they can choose to use it to crush. Cedar Ridge now has a new board, better transparency, and a community fund that Lily helped start for teachers who need emergency support. We still have neighbors who won't speak to us. We still live with the knowledge that power can be persistent. But we also know that stubborn kindness and good records matter. So here's what I want you to do, not because I'm telling you how to live, but because I want the conversation to keep moving. Tell me, in the comments, what you would have done in our place. Do you think we pushed too hard, or not hard enough? Where do you draw the line between private grievances and public accountability? Have you ever seen an HOA drive someone to the edge, or help protect a neighborhood? Be honest. Share this if you think more people should know how these quiet battles happen behind manicured lawns. When the night feels loud and small people act large, keep the receipts. Keep the dates. Keep your voice steady. That's how we win things that are worth winning.